So honestly, vulnerability, authenticity is a great marketing. I want to call it a strategy or a tactic, but it is a great way to do attraction marketing because people are attracted to that because they want to know they're not alone, that they're not the only one struggling. They're not the only one having doubt. They're not the only one being fearful. And when you say, hey, I had doubts, I had fear, but here's what I did to overcome it. Now they're leaning in. Now they're like, okay, I want this product or service. He just admitted it's the same way I am.
Welcome to the Profits podcast, where all things are possible when love is your bottom line. All are welcome here: entrepreneurs, business professionals, tradespeople, athletes, academics, and even astronauts. Doesn't matter. Give us 20 minutes, and we promise you'll get something out of it, I hope. Mm-hmm. I'm Steve, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Al, your pal.
He's a business owner, husband, father, and a legal streetcar racer. Okay. Hello, Al. How you doing?
Thanks.
And we're also joined by Nadine Mullings. Hi, Nadine.
Hello, everyone. So super excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You got it. We're going to get into a little bit more about what you do and why you're a guest on Profits to the Profits in just a little bit. But first, I would like to start out by breaking the ice a little bit, getting us a little bit more comfortable. And by that, I usually tell a story. So before I tell this story, if you want to skip forward to the 10-minute mark, we're going to be getting right into our discussion with Nadine about marketing. But for now, here's my story for you guys. So here's a story. And I actually, once I tell this story, I need you guys' opinion and your advice on something that happened to me recently. Okay? Yeah. The story is this. Tuesday's garbage day for me. And recently we just cleaned our house, and we had a ton of garbage, like extra garbage, like 4 weeks worth of garbage. Now, one of my neighbors, an elderly neighbor, Doreen, years ago, she said, you can use my garbage bin if you have extra garbage. I was like, oh, that's nice, So I put a little bit of garbage in Doreen's garbage bin, as she said, about 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, I still had a lot of garbage. And this other elderly woman across the street named Joan, who's really sweet. We have a nice, friendly, neighborly relationship. Mm-hmm. Her bin was out, but she never really gave me permission to put garbage in her bin. But I was like, she likes me. I've done things for her. I take her garbage out during the winter when it's icy, try to help her out. My oldest son goes over there to help her out with certain things around the house. So I put some garbage in her bin, 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, I get home, and there's a note in my mailbox from Joan. Basically said, don't you ever do that again. It was very kind of surprised me really that she got annoyed about it. First of all, I'm like, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. Was she up looking out her window, And
yeah.
So I couldn't figure that out. So I felt bad, number one, because I knew when I tossed it in there, it probably shouldn't do that.
Probably ask her first.
Probably should have asked her first. But at the same time, I'm like, neighbors, help out neighbors, I think, would have thought. So this morning, I wrote an apology letter. I said, I apologize. I should have asked for your permission first. But it was a qualifying apology because I then said, but if you need any more help in the winter coming up, getting your garbage out, remember to ask me. So it was like I didn't apologize really that well. Oh. Put it in her mailbox and, then started thinking about it on the way in here. So I would like ask your advice. First of all, Nadine, what would you have thought if you'd seen somebody in your neighborhood that using her garbage can at 7 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah. I think that if you have a relationship with the person, then it should be okay. And you assumed you had some type of relationship with her. So you're like, it should be fine to just put it in here. But we never know what people think and what people will be offended by. And obviously, she thought it was the wrong thing to do, and she was offended by it. But I love the note that you wrote because you kind of underliningly told her, hey, we have a relationship. Remember, I've taken out your garbage. I've done these things for you. And hey, by the way, if you still need me to do that, I can do that for you. So I really like your notes because it really showed that, hey, this wasn't done in a mean way and we kind of have a relationship. So, and I'm still open and want to help you in any way possible, even though you made it clear that you don't want me to touch your garbage.
Al?
I would have called the police.
I'm not going to call the police on her.
No, I would have called the police on you.
I know.
Oh,
yeah, it's a sticky situation. You have a neighbor you feel you have a good relationship with. Now, it's a little bit more details of the story. Her husband died about 4 years ago, and she's lonely. And I assume it's kind of like at that stage of her life, she's got to be in the mid-80s. That I assume that the older you get, depending on your circumstances, life probably isn't as wonderful as when you were in your 20s.
Sure.
And so I got to keep that in mind. And then, moving forward with that, I definitely will try to connect. I didn't want to just leave a note and just let that be all that I did. So
Yeah.
I did, say that I will be reaching out to her in person to, just to see how she's doing.
Yeah, you should definitely. And I appreciate the fact that, you've learned your lesson and apologized instead of just.
Oh, well, I'm using her trash bin again.
Yeah, you just got to get up at 6.
I just got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
She might be sleeping then.
I don't know. So that's my story. That's some advice I was looking for. Just real quick, you guys can think of anything with your neighbors that you had a little situation with? You don't have neighbors. Your nearest neighbor's like 4 miles away.
No, I have neighbors. I moved into a home my wife grew up in. And so the neighbors were in knowledge of her and loved her family years before I got there, right? And so I had to make sure I kept that going. And I came from the city and I'm moving to the country. And in the city, the neighbors had tension always. I don't know if it was because we're just too close together or whatever, but my family was very welcoming and always, light and, blew it off. We didn't like to carry any kind of grudges. So, but I always knew neighbors could be either it's a love-hate relationship. But I came into this, this neighborhood now in the country. And there was a neighbor right next door, and I enjoyed the fact that it was already established as a good relationship. Almost the fact like he'd come over with his tractor and plow us out, and we'd go over and help shovel his steps, because he's older, this guy and his wife, and they could, use their equipment, but they couldn't shovel a path. So we kind of help each other. And I love that, and I just look back on that. It was a fond memory, right? Coming from what I was used to growing up, whether it was, it could have been, I don't know. Could have been 911 called. A lot of action.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that when I grew up in the city. So that's a memory for me that I always try to preserve that relationship. And same thing. If I needed to use their garbage, I would just go and knock on the door, even if it was 7 a.m, and say, "Hey, can I put some garbage?" Oh yeah, of course. But yeah, now just ask, even if it's 7 a.m.
Well, as you were telling that story, actually reminded me of a neighbor who did the same exact thing to another neighbor, not to me, but to another neighbor. And that neighbor came over to our house and complained and was saying, did you see the neighbor, basically trying to get us in on what the neighbor did? So that story stood out for me when you were talking about how you put the garbage in that person's garbage can. But the thing was, they did not have a relationship at all. They were like kind of, I wouldn't say at odds, but they weren't friendly at all. But that neighbor felt like he could go ahead and put his garbage in his pan without having any relationship and really not even friendly at all. So the neighbor who he put the garbage in came to us and said, did you see him? Did you see him do it? And we have a camera. And so he was wanting access to our camera and stuff. So that was the incident that came up when I was hearing you speak about it. So it's kind of like indirectly related, but not related to our neighbor incident.
Okay. So one of the things, and the last thing about this is, I try to operate based on the scripture, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that doesn't always work because I wouldn't care. So in many ways, a lot of things I do, I'm like, I wouldn't mind. So the heck, they shouldn't mind either. And of course, you have to take it a little bit step further and try to have perspective about, what you're doing. And 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 learn, I guess, as you go along. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that loosely brings us to the topic of the day, and the topic of the day is know your audience, integrity and faith in marketing. We're here to talk about marketing today, and let's get to know our guest better now.
Nadine Mullings is the CEO and partner and the founder of the Women, Faith, and Business community. She's passionate about assisting women of faith in business who have a God-given message to increase their reach and revenue, but through podcasting, books, and summits. So welcome, Nadine.
Thank you so much.
So we had our podcast meeting today, and we're like, well, how do we start this off, this conversation? And I'm going to start out with what seems like a basic question, but I think it's actually maybe a complicated question to answer, and that is, what is marketing? Nadine, what is marketing to you? What is marketing?
I love that question. So marketing is really something simple that people get overwhelmed by, but it really is simply awareness. It's allowing people to be aware of your product or service. Without marketing, people are not aware of it. But in addition to awareness, it's also allowing people to take action, because you don't want people to just be aware of your product or service. You actually want people to lean in and put their hands up and either order the product or submit the form. There's some type of action that you're desiring for people to take. So marketing is simply the things that you do to make your product or service have an awareness in the marketplace and allow people to take action on your product or service. So awareness and action are the key things when it comes to marketing.
Yep. And Al has a little bit of experience with marketing.
Yeah, I always tout that call to actions are something a lot of people miss. And you hit the nail on the head when you included that in the description. I love it.
Yep.
And I always think, and you probably would agree, the best way to market is a genuine visibility of who you really are to the outside, right?
Yeah.
Try not to, falsify something. Just be genuine and integral, and that's showing who you are, right?
So,
and I love what Al mentioned, if I could just jump in really quick, because it's about attraction too. So if you think about awareness and action, Al said you want to be authentic, you want to be genuine, you want to be yourself. And then when you are authentic and genuine yourself, that's when the attraction piece comes in. So marketing is also about that attraction. So I always like analogies, and I always like alliteration. So if we think of marketing as attraction, awareness, and action, then that really is the full total definition of what marketing should be for your company.
So we are approaching marketing in this podcast from a perspective that I would say 95% of marketers probably don't have, and that is from a spiritual-led perspective, our faith, and how we want to honor God and do things the way we should do. Now, I think that sometimes marketing can be a manipulative sort of craft, and there are certain elements to it that, as a Christian, sometimes it can get a little bit tough to navigate. So I'd like to hear more about that from you. How do you balance obedience to God with pursuing business goals?
Absolutely. I think the key word that you mentioned was spirit-led. And this is something that a lot of marketing people in general are not going to talk about. But as Christians, as believers in business, as women and men of faith, we have the gift of the Holy Spirit that has been placed inside of us. And it's not a gift to just be used personally, but also in business, right? It's a gift where Jesus was like, you're going to get something even better than me because it's inside of you, and it's going to do all things, comfort you, instruct you. So we can't neglect the spirit-led part of us when it comes to marketing. So I always talk about spirit-led business and specifically spirit-led marketing as being led to what you need to do in the marketplace by the Spirit. And that could look different from what everyone else is doing in your industry. Other people may be doing webinars or events or whatever the case may be, but you feel led in your spirit to do something totally different, right? And so it's very important for us to lean into what the Holy Spirit is guiding us to do and step into that gift that we have as believers, as Christians, as men and women of faith. So that's why I think is really different than traditional marketing when you're focused on spirit-led marketing.
Maybe can you share with us, I love that idea and the concept that you're talking about seems so natural to you. Was there a pivot point of when you realized that? Is there like, hey, there's a prior Nadine experience and then, oh, I realized this and here, let's go forward with it. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I love that question, Al. There was definitely a pivot point. I started my business, my marketing agency in 2012, and I was going along as a regular marketing agency, teaching people how to market and promote, but God was working on me behind the scenes. I came from a corporate background, so I worked for a financial institution doing marketing and promoting for over 15 years. So I came from the mindset that you don't combine faith and business, right? When you're in a corporate, especially finances, and you're dealing with people's savings and check-ins, you're not going to say, do you know Jesus Christ? And, what religion are you? You're not going to bring that into the conversation. So I definitely came from this mindset. They're two different things. You don't combine the two. But behind the scenes, when I started my own business in 2012 and I launched my marketing agency, God was starting to work on my heart. And he was like, this is your business. You can operate the way that I tell you to operate it. And I want you to combine faith and business. I want you to share on your business platform how faith plays a role, because I believe entrepreneurship is a faith journey. If you have been given the instruction to start your own business, it's a leap of faith, right? So he was working on that behind the scenes. But I was continuing to do traditional marketing and teaching people traditionally how to market. Then one day I got an email from a lady who was launching a book, and her book was called 40 Days of Prayer for Your Business. Something in my spirit just jumped at that. I was like, oh my gosh, this book is talking about prayer and it's talking about business. It's 40 days of prayer for my business. I reached out to her immediately when I got that email and I said, I feel led to support you. Any way I can support you. I'm going to buy 10 of your books, because she just launched the book, and I'm going to host an event. I'm going to have people come to the event. I'll give each of them a book, and I'll invite you as a guest speaker to share about prayer and business. And I really felt led to do that. Example of spirit led. It was not in my marketing plan. It wasn't what I thought I was going to do. I got a simple email and it just leapt in my spirit and in my heart to support this woman. And it wasn't anything that made sense. It didn't make sense because I'm not talking about my marketing agency. I'm not talking about marketing, strategies or tactics. I'm simply supporting this woman who has a God-given message and wants to combine faith and business in the marketplace. And that was the pivot point. Once I had that event, it sold out. And not only did it sell out it was an intimate event, less than 50 people, so not hundreds of people in the room, but
that's
still,
serious, though. That's wonderful.
Exactly. But still, it was a sell. And when I sat in the room hosting that event and facilitating that event, something in my spirit said, this is exactly what I want you to do. And from that point on, I started doing all these events, combining faith and business. I had Power of Prayer, Power of Faith, all these power events were based on faith and business and how you combine the two. And it really shifted my business to start talking about that. And so that was the pivotal point and really the change in my business.
Oh, man, that is awesome. Now, I don't really like reading. Does she have a 2-day version?
Well, you can read the first 2 days of the 40 days of prayer for my business, but I'm sure you'll be prompted to want to read the rest of the days too.
All right,
the
good.
Spirit will lead you on.
I'm sorry, I'm a joke cracker. Okay, that is really awesome, and that's what this is. I was hoping that I figured this discussion would go in this direction, and that's fantastic. I'm kind of wondering though, the marketing can be a sticky, tricky business. From when you were in the secular world, how do you maintain that obedience, and you got to stay stay principled if you're in a situation where they're marketing and they're kind of doing things you're like, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this.
Yeah, I didn't have a particular situation where it was against my principles or something where I felt I shouldn't be doing, but there are a lot of things and practices that they teach you when it comes to marketing and sales in general, like saying there's a limited amount of products where we know there is endless amounts of products, right? Or a limited time to join us. And it's wanting to have a sense of urgency to get people to move because people generally procrastinate, right? That whole call to action thing, they will take their time to do the action piece, right? So you want some type of urgency. But as a believer, as a Christian, as a woman, as a man of faith, we're guided by different principles. And we know that we're not here to manipulate people. And we know that we are assigned to particular people. And the right people will hear our message and want to move forward with us. So there is no need for manipulation.
All right, let me ask the question I've been looking forward to asking, and that is TikTok evil?
Is TikTok evil? I would say the answer to that is no. That there's a lot of things that we will label as evil, especially coming from the Christian realm. I've heard the internet is evil when the internet first came out, right? AI is evil because anything that's new, the first connotation or the first thought is, oh, this must be evil, or it's of the devil, or it's not good. But to be honest, God can use anything and anyone, right? And TikTok is an avenue where God can use to actually share his message, right? So I would never look at any one thing, whether that be internet, AI, or TikTok, and say it's evil. I will always look at them as tools that can be used for good or for evil, right? So it's how we manage that tool as individuals. And if we have Christians, believers, women and men of faith on those platforms using that tool for God's good and spreading God's message and reaching people, then it's not evil. So that would be my answer to that.
If you're in a situation like you're working for a company and the marketing is their marketing strategy is definitely challenging your belief system, then God is maybe telling you that this is not the place for you to be. But that's so easily said when you're making a certain wage and you have a job and you have benefits. So how would you navigate that in a way to maintain your job? I mean, do you just back out and just decline certain projects, or what?
I would pose this question. Who do you trust more, the job, the salary, or God? So I would say you take a stand.
Yeah.
I'd completely agree. I'd rather have the Lord on my side than, the world in general. Just quick question. I'm just curious of what kind of obstacles have you come against?
Absolutely. It's an obstacle that I continue to face, and hopefully a lot of your audience can relate to, and that is doubt. Doubt is something that we can all suffer from. Am I good enough, right? Am I the right person? I always think of Moses as an example. He was like, do you want me to be the lead? I have a stutter. I can't speak. I can't, we all come up with those excuses as to why we're not the one that God should be using. So we doubt our ability. We doubt that it's the right assignment. But you have to lean on God's word and who God says you are. You think about Gideon in the Bible where God tells him he's a mighty warrior before he ever knew he was a mighty warrior, right? There's so many promises that God says in the Bible for us. I will be with you. I'm here for you through the end of time. And when we lean on those promises, it helps to alleviate the doubt. I'm not going to say it gets rid of it totally because we're human beings. Tomorrow I may have a doubt about something again tomorrow. And then I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm doubting about this. Help me to lean into your word. Help me to lean into your promises. So I think the biggest challenge for me has been self-doubt, and having to really lean on my faith and lean on God's word to move past the doubt in each moment that I'm having doubt.
Yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability in that. Yeah. And a lot of folks think in business that you have project confidence, right? Like, and if you don't, you let them see you sweat, right? Like they even say that, don't let them see you sweat concept, which is really opposite of how the Lord would like us to move amongst people, right? Just he would rather us boast in our weakness. So that, that's opposite of what business thought processes in the world would think. That's the last thing you should do, is show your weaknesses. And and when you boast about those things, as you just have, I appreciate that. Everybody doubts it. It kind of brings everyone together. Like, hey, I'm not alone, right? And that lifts up so many people around you. And I think that's more powerful.
A lot of times we have this facade or presentation of, we're the experts, we're confident, we know what we're doing. But people are attracted to, going back to that attraction thing, the vulnerability, the authenticity. You actually get more clients by sharing your story and the things that you've overcome, and vulnerability and the authenticity. People are like, oh my gosh, I can relate so much to him. I want to buy his product or service more than I'm polished and I'm perfect. Then they can't relate to you. It's like, oh, he's so polished and perfect, I don't think he's the right person for me, or I don't think it's the right product for me. So honestly, vulnerability, authenticity is a great marketing. I want to call it a strategy or a tactic, but it is a great way to do attraction marketing, because people are attracted to that, because they want to know they're not alone, that they're not the only one struggling. They're not the only one having doubt. They're not the only one being fearful. And when you say, hey, I had doubts, I had fear, but here's what I did to overcome it. Now they're leaning in. Now they're like, okay, I want this product or service. He just admitted it's the same way I am.
You said it, but as Al always says, you can't fake it. You can't fake being genuine, right? How funny is that? And what is the one way that you can think of to truly be genuine and not try to come across something that you're not?
Yeah, I love that question, Steve, because I think we're also going through this time where everyone's trying to be vulnerable, right? I hate those posts where you see a selfie of a person and they start telling this long story and being super vulnerable, and at the end of it is like, buy my book or whatever. So the vulnerability was an end game, right, to get something. And that is common. That's something a lot of people are leaning into now. But I think what sells best is just straight from the heart. We talked about love on this podcast and leading with love. And when you have an authentic message that's coming from the heart, people feel that. People feel the energy in the words that you use, or if you're on camera, the tone, your body. People can actually spot when it's authentic. People can actually spot when it's coming from your heart versus a rehearsed vulnerability just to make a point or to sell something. So I think human nature, we have the ability to suss out the ones that are just doing it because they feel like, hey, vulnerability is the way to go now, versus the ones who have a true, authentic, heartfelt story that people can relate to. So I think we have the ability to tell between the two.
Our podcast here, and the reason why we're here, is to bring this bridge between what we see as a lot of biblical principles that we know as Christians, that's in God's Word, that we are moved with the Spirit by, and bridge that to what I see in business, especially like a lot of the business books that's being written, or the trends that are out there on and off social media. And you might have noticed this throughout the years where, somebody's writing a business concept, and maybe it goes viral. Maybe it sells millions of books and has TED Talks around it. And you're watching and you're reading and you're looking at these things and you're like, wow, I think that's a biblical principle, right? Do you notice that around interactions?
Absolutely, 110% that is the case. And some people will give credit. That's where the giving God the glory is important as to the source of where this principle is coming from. And other people may not give God the glory, but I believe God calls all of us as believers, as Christians, as men and women of faith, to be in the marketplace, either overt or covert, right? So if you're covert, it may be that people see something different about you. They're like, wow, what's different about that person? But you're not loudly professing, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I'm a person of faith. But they see you act different, you speak different, you interact differently, and it makes them want to question you, and maybe even privately ask you questions. So I believe God allows us to operate both ways, overtly and covertly. And I'll give you a real life example. There's an author, oh gosh, his name's going to escape me, but I know his book because it's super popular, The 5 Love Languages. Most people, Gary Chapman, right?
Gary
Is it Gary
Chapman, that's
Chapman?
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's super popular. Everyone asks, especially relationship wise, what's your love language? That's a common worldly, I want to say now. Everybody knows about it. But maybe not a lot of people know that it's a Christian man that wrote the book, and it's Christian principles, and it's a Christian behind it, right? But it's what God put on his heart to place in the marketplace, and it has such a major impact in the marketplace. But it's not overtly Christian, right? But it's still helping people in so many different ways. So I believe, even though it's not blatantly saying Christian believers, 5 love languages, look at the impact it's having in the marketplace. Look at how many people now understand how to communicate with their partners better based on love language. And that actually is a God thing. That is a God thing, right? But a lot of people don't know that because Gary Chapman's not openly in that book anyways. I believe his backstory is he was with a Christian publisher, and they decided with 5 love languages to not make it under the Christian label. That was the first project they decided to do that way. And look at the impact of that book now. So that would be an example I would share on that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up. In fact, funny thing about that, maybe several years into our marriage, my wife and I were asked by the pastor to bring that lesson, 5 love languages. It had like a study guide, and we ran it for our church, and anybody in a relationship could come and learn about it. That saved my marriage, Steve. Honestly.
Absolutely.
Before I go on to our next segment, which I think you're going to like, where can people find you, and where can they connect with you?
Absolutely. The best place to find me is NadineMullings.com. That is my personal brand website. We also just launched the She Elevates Media website. Well, it's coming soon. So if you go to She Elevates Media, you can sign up for learning more about She Elevates Media, how we help women of faith with books, podcasts, and summits to get their God-given message out to the world.
Awesome. Totally awesome. I just really appreciate everything you brought to this discussion. That was a lot of fun. So we're going to keep the fun going with our next segment, which is a segment we call Sumtin Fun. We like to end every episode with something that hopefully brings a smile to your face if you need a little pick-me-up. Okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a trivia showdown right now between you and Al.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to give Nadine, you're going to get a question. If you get it right without multiple choice, you get 3 points. If you need multiple choice and you get it right, you get a point. And Al gets one question. If he gets it right without multiple choice, he gets 3 points. And if you get it right, if you can't do it that way, but you get it right with the multiple choice, you get a point. If it's tied after that, we'll go to a tiebreaker question. If it's tied after that, then it's a tie. That sound good? Okay.
Yep.
What planet is the closest to the sun in our solar system?
Oh, goodness. Can I have multiple choice?
Yes. Multiple choice is A, Mars, B, Earth, C, Neptune, or D, Mercury.
Oh my gosh, this shows how much knowledge I do not have when it comes to planets. Is it Earth? I don't know.
You're going to go with B, Earth?
Yes.
Nadine, we would have burned up and been ashes decades, thousands of millions of years ago, or whatever they say.
I thought that too. I was like, we don't want to be too close to the sun.
It is
Mercury.
D, Mercury. Okay.
Mercury.
So Al can take this one home if he can get this question right, but I have a feeling he's going to really struggle with this one because I know him well. I'm so glad you picked the first question because this one's going to stump him. Al, your first question. How many NFL teams are there?
Whoa.
Nadine, something about myself. I actually don't like sports.
Okay.
I mean, I live in Buffalo, and I do like rooting for the Bills, but I do not like sports. I don't necessarily. I do street racing, illegal street racing, as Steve would say. Boy. How about 32?
You're going with 32 without multiple choice? Was that a good decision?
I'm just going for it.
Al, come on, man. Did you cheat? You got it right.
Really?
Yeah.
What? What? Wow.
I don't know. Are you kidding me? Well, I know.
That's
you know
awesome.
why? You know why 32 is stuck in my head? Only because
Why?
isn't there 16 games in the NFL?
17.
Oh, well, I was totally wrong. I thought there was 16 games in a season. I'm thinking, well, times 2, and everyone's got to play each other. I mean, that's literally what I thought. Like, that's my math, my non-sports brain.
Well, your math worked for you. Your math worked for you.
All right, awesome. Thanks for doing that with us.
Thank you for having me.
With everybody watching that find us, we'd love to connect with you. So, if you saw this on YouTube, please, join the discussion with a comment below. Do that thing that they do. Subscribe, hit the like button, all that stuff. Yeah. And, we're also on Facebook now. Follow us there. And iTunes and Spotify. So, if you found this at all interesting or entertaining or educational, you might have problems. I don't know.
Well, at the very least, check out Nadine and what she's got going on.
Absolutely. And let's finish off with the way we like to finish this off.
What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?
All right.
Awesome. Thank you,
Nadine.
guys.